Good morning. I'm sorry, it was taking my video a little bit to pop up, so I was waiting for it to come on before I actually started speaking. So, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. And I would first like to start off by saying happy Veterinary Technicians Week before we start anything off. So, thank you to all our veterinary technicians out there, and happy Veterinary Technicians Week. So, okay, let's call the meeting to order and establish a quorum.
Ms. Pulowski,
Here.
Dr. Lazarchev,
I'm here.
Dr. Bradbury,
Here.
Ms. Laredo,
Here.
Dr. Payton,
Here.
Ms. Schafelt,
Here.
Ms. Sperber,
Here.
Dr. Sequoia, Dr. Sequoia,
I'm here, sorry, forgot to mute.
all right, and Dr. Sullivan is absent today. We have a quorum.
And thank you, Dr. Sullivan, because you are serving the MDC in a different capacity. So I do appreciate it and just want to make note of that. And I just want to go ahead and move on to agenda item number 2. But I would actually ask that, as all of you know, this is my last MDC meeting. I don't know what I'm going to do with myself. I've been coming to MDC meetings for longer than 10 years. So I would ask if we could move agenda item number 2 to the end. Would that be okay?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Okay, so we're going to move past agenda item number 2. And we're going to move it to the end. So let's go to agenda item number 3, public comment on items not on the agenda. So let's go ahead and moderator, if we could open that up, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have opened up the question and answer panel. If any member of the public would like to make a comment, please type comment in the field in the lower right-hand corner of the screen and submit it to all panelists. We are displaying instructions for your reference and will give you a moment. Madam Chair, I see no requests for comment at this time. Would you like me to close the Q&A panel?
Yes, please. Thank you.
All right, it's closed.
Thank you. So moving on, let's go to agenda item number 4, review and approval of the July 21st, 2021 committee meeting minutes. Any comments from the committee? Don't everybody speak at once again. Here we go.
They looked good for me.
I wasn't there, so I'm not making any comments.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Dr. Ladishev.
Okay by me.
Can I make a comment on page 2 of 15? It's just a typo. Number 2, committee chair remarks and committee members. It's just a typo. Ms. Pulaski welcomed Dr. Diane Sequoia to the committee and asked to her to. Just take out the first 2. After that, there's no other comments. So can anybody want to make a motion?
Move to approve the minutes.
I'll second that.
The minutes, is it moved to approve the minutes as amended?
Yeah, we need it as amended, and I'll need to know who approved and or made the motion and who seconded.
Jennifer motioned to approve as amended.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Dr. Bradbury motion to second.
Thank you. Anything else? Can we, moderator?
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So I have now opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment on this agenda item, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen and submit it to all panelists. We are displaying instructions for your reference, and we'll give you a moment. All right, this is the moderator. I see no request for comment at this time. Madam Chair, shall I close the Q&A panel?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Okay, it's closed.
Okay, Jessica, your turn. Call for the vote.
Okay, I was just told I was very quiet, so I'm going to try to change my audio, but I'll take the roll real fast, or sorry, the vote.
We can hear you fine now.
Oh, okay. Ms. Pulowski,
Yes.
Dr. Lazarchev,
Yes.
Dr. Bradbury,
Yes.
Ms. Laredo,
Yes.
Dr. Payton,
Yes.
Ms. Schafelt,
Yes.
Ms. Berber,
Yes.
Dr. Sequoia.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you all. Agenda item number 5. So the veterinary premises inspection checklist. So I'm not sure if it's Dr. Sequoia or Jennifer. Which one of you would like to take this over?
I would suggest Jennifer Laredo because she's had more experience than me on it. Is that okay with you?
That's fine, but keep in mind I haven't been caffeinated yet, so I'll do my best. I'm still working on it. So with this agenda item, obviously we've been talking about this. Excuse me, I have a new dog who's terrorizing the house. Give me just a second.
Sorry.
Apologies, puppies, I tell you. We had been discussing this after the board recommended that we explore the mandate. We had several meetings. We've had several subcommittee members. We're so grateful for Dr. Sequoia. She's been very helpful in this subcommittee. But after all of the meetings and all of the information that we have reviewed, we had, if you recall, had meetings with other members, other boards from the DCA. We had sent out a poll to the hospital inspectors asking their opinions. And it's not just the mandate, it's the process, it's the checklist. There were so many factors that go into an inspection that I wasn't even aware of. We do have the merger of the inspection and the enforcement unit. We do have an app in progress that should help with submitting the inspection paperwork. So there is a lot that's still in the works, but the most recent meeting we had, we did meet with Dr. Howard and Patty, and we did look at all of the information, and the recommendation from our subcommittee is that we do not adjust the inspection checklist. There were too many areas that could fall through the cracks, too many things that were important that were on that checklist. So we are recommending that we do not adjust to the checklist at all. And our final recommendation was that we request the MDC approve that we just continue to monitor and can keep this subcommittee going so that we can see the results of all of the things that are in progress, the mergers of the units and the app that's coming up. And that is all I can recommend. Does anybody have questions or comments?
She's doing very well with a new puppy. These are the tasks we have when we when we have to work from home, right?
Yeah, we're dealing with constant vandalism, but she's cute, so.
Thank you for all of the work. And I appreciated the report because I think this was important information. And I think it's important for everybody to understand that sometimes patience is the hardest part, but we have to wait for it because that's our job on the MDC is gathering information. We we sometimes want to go full speed ahead and we can't. We can't because we have to make sure that we have all of the information in front of us before we make the decisions, and that's our job. We are a workhorse committee that has to find out that we have all of the information before we can present it to the veterinary medical board to make the decision. And so sometimes that is difficult, but it's our job. That's what we have to do. So patience is key, and I appreciate all of your hard work in doing this, you guys, in presenting all of this before our committee. Any comments or questions from our committee before I go to the public?
I have a just a comment question. It's a hybrid. Hi, good morning, everyone.
It wouldn't be a meeting without you asking a
I
question.
know. I'm that kid in the classroom. Sorry.
I love it.
So thank you guys, because I know that this is a lot of work and it is super helpful, and patience is not one of my virtues, which I'm working on. But anyway, I was going through when I was looking over, I think I was looking over the meeting notes, the board meeting notes, and I saw the comments from Dr. Noland about, you know, it wasn't like modifying the checklist completely, like changing the checklist for all inspections that they were wondering about. It was for specific complaints, like going in and actually looking at, or not specific complaints, rather for routine inspections, I think doing more of like a quality control, random checking of lesser items. And I just want to make sure that that's what we looked at. I'm sure it is, but I just want to make sure, because the way it all sounds is that the question that was asked was, should we modify the checklist in total versus modify how we do inspections, and maybe be more focused or less, have less of an exhaustive list for the routine inspections. So I just want to make sure that was clear, that was, because that was what Dr. Nolan asked. I think that the answer is that the veterinarians were really getting a huge benefit out of having the whole checklist looked at in the routine inspections in particular, probably because they felt like they were getting, they understood that they were in compliance when that was all checked off. But I just want to make sure that Dr. Nolan's original idea was explored in that way. So that's it. Thanks.
I can take that. And Dr. Bradbury, I can't talk to you without that gorgeous background behind you. I need you to go outside, please. So we did look at all aspects of that. And the biggest concern with reducing the checklist, even for the routine inspections, it gives the perception that they're in compliance. And what the checklist does in the entire inspection, it's educational, so that they are understanding what they need to do to be in compliance. So that was one of the biggest concerns. And removing one thing or two things wasn't going to make any progress, I guess we would say. And we were actually given some examples of what a checklist looked like long ago, and it's very useful as an educational tool, but also there were a lot of disadvantages. So we did look at all aspects of that.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I went to a meeting that said that the blurred background is less distracting, so I'm trying it out.
My cat swarming me right now is a little distracting, I'm not gonna lie, because I feel like I'm being attacked. So I get it. Totally understand that.
And thank you, Jennifer. I appreciate that. I Christy, when we're discussing it with the board, if maybe we can just make sure that Dr. Nolan feels heard in that, as you're just going over the findings and that was kind of looked at. I think it's pretty clear, but I wasn't 100% clear. So if we can
Right.
just make
Well, they
sure.
are looking, I mean, the subcommittee is requesting a motion, so I don't know if anybody's noticed that.
On page 4 of the materials under action requested, there are 2 specific motions that the subcommittee is seeking.
Okay, I will motion to recommend to the board that no changes be made to reduce or otherwise limit the number of items listed on the inspection checklist.
I would second that.
Thank you. So we have Bradbury making the motion and Dr. Lazarsheff seconding. Any further comment? We want to go ahead and open this. We're going to have to open this up to the, thank you, moderator.
All right, so I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to make a comment on this agenda item, please type comment in the field in the lower right-hand corner of the screen and send it to all panelists. We are displaying instructions for your reference and we'll give you a moment. All right, this is the moderator. I see no requests for comment at this time. Madam Chair, shall I close the Q&A panel?
Yes, please. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So we can go ahead and call for a vote on this motion.
Ms. Pulowski,
Yes.
Dr. Lazarsheff,
Yes.
Dr. Bradbury,
Yes.
Ms. Laredo,
Yes.
Dr. Payton,
Yes.
Ms. Shefelt,
Yes.
Ms. Berber,
Yes.
Dr. Sequoia,
Yes.
and Dr. Sullivan is absent. Motion carries.
Thank you. So there's a second motion. Does anybody see that one? The second one.
In addition, I would like to motion the subcommittee requests the MDC to approve. Oh, sorry, I'm like reading it. Okay, I'd like to motion to recommend to the board that it direct the inspection subcommittee to monitor the progress of the inspection and enforcement units merger, inspection process improvements, and mobile app implementation for 12 months and bring data-driven recommendations back to the board regarding the 20% inspections mandate.
I will second that as well.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. And we can open that up for the public, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have opened up the Q&A panel, and if any member of the public would like to make a comment on this agenda item, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen and submit it to all panelists. We are displaying instructions for your reference, and we'll give you a moment. All right, this is the moderator. I see no requests for comment at this time. Madam Chair, shall I close the Q&A panel?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, we can call for a vote.
Pulowski,
Yes.
Dr. Lazarsheff,
Yes, if you call me, you
You're
faded out.
quiet again.
oh dang, Dr. Bradbury,
Yes.
Ms. Laredo,
Yes.
Dr. Payton, Dr. Payton,
Yes.
Ms. Shefelt,
Yes.
Ms. Berber,
Yes.
Dr. Sequoia,
Yes.
Dr. Sullivan is absent. Motion carries.
Thank you. Okay. Moving on to agenda item number 6, the update from the Complaint Process Audit Subcommittee. I'm not sure which one of you are going to handle this, Dr.
I can
Lazarsheff.
go over the first part. it was great to have Dr. Bradbury on this. She just jumped right in and went to town. And we reviewed 8 cases. Some of them had been, with the board for quite a while. And Rob's rundown of this is pretty clear. We had some points of where we needed references cited. There was some biased language addressing the standard of care, which is always difficult, was none of a few. Let's see. We did some work too, kind of brainstorming on what we could do to maybe make this a little bit better. We also talked with Rob quite a bit about the cycle times and where things are getting bogged down. I believe there's like 200 cases backlog, and then of course the new cases coming in has increased quite a bit as well. So, it's really nothing that several more people and a whole lot of money wouldn't solve, but that doesn't seem to be an option at the moment. So they're streamlining everything they can and working through these old cases regardless. They're not putting any new cases before the old ones unless it's seriously egregious or it's related to an older case. And that should hopefully clear up some of this backlog. With regard to expert witness training, I attended the medical board's expert witness training last weekend. That's a really cool course, and I think I'm glad our experts are taking it. There's some things that don't apply to the veterinary side, but I wouldn't want to throw out the baby with the bathwater. They have their staff talk, and then they also have presentations by the inspectors, the attorney general. There was an administrative law judge who spoke as well. So if you had to testify, she gave a lot of pointers on how you should do it, what she's looking for, what she doesn't want to see. It was really, really good. I think it said that this course was recorded. And if it is, I would hope that would be available to everybody on this committee, not that we have to attend that day-long class, but just so at our leisure, we could go through and see what the basics is being taught, is being presented to the expert witnesses, and give us a good idea. Because I wish I'd had this, 3 years ago when I started on this committee. It's really a lot of good information to see what they go through. And they do talk about citing references and your biased language and all that stuff. Again, we'll have to have our witnesses take some training in veterinary specific things, but overall it's a very good course. Let's see, I don't think, Dr. Bradbury, do you have anything else to add on that?
Thanks, Dr. Lazarchuk. Yeah, that's pretty good. I'm glad you went to that. I'm sorry I couldn't make it myself. I was in Hawaii. It was really rough. So, but I did kind of want to just expand a little bit on the number of cases and how this is growing. Like in the board meeting information, it's broken down really well. Rob has done a great job of starting to track things really, really well. So I think it gives us data-driven information. And we were talking about, working these old cases and having one person work from the beginning to the end, which I think has been helpful. The cases that we were asked to look at were they were closed in 2021, and the complaints came in 2017. And so that's a really, really long time, right? And I think before things would come in and then they get put on a shelf, and that was the explanation for why there was a lot of desk time. So they'd get all of they'd get a complaint, they'd ask for the information from the various places that needed to come in, they'd send out for an expert to look at, and then sometimes it would just sit there. And so we talked about that, and they're trying to pull all of those and pull them out. But just some numbers so you guys get a feel of this. At the end of the 2019-2020 year, we had 2,434 pending cases. We had an uptick in every year we're having, more and more complaints. And so there was, I think, a 25% increase in complaints year over year. But that is, I think, a bit less than the number of cases that were added to the pending cases. So at the end of 2020, 2021, there was 3,532 cases. So it's like 1,100 difference. And yes, I think there was more than that came in, but it's still kind of not really even keeping up with what we're getting in. That isn't gonna, like, how will we ever get ahead of that? And part of the problem is when they're working these older cases, they almost have to start over because the person that's working it's never seen it, they've never had eyes on it, and so they're like pulling the information. And it sounds like sometimes for the more complex cases, they have to go and kind of get new statements perhaps or something like that. But there were some cases that had clear sort of evidence, like, for example, a DUI case, where it was clear that they were already the criminal investigation was done by another, by the police, and they were already, I'm searching for the word, not finding it, but they'd already been convicted of that, and everything was kind of there, but it had been just sitting there, and so, and then sometimes those were being sent to expert witnesses. That's something that has been changed, where that doesn't get sent to them anymore. So that's going to really help, because like an expert witness doesn't need to be asked to is this, professional or not. But the reality is that I think there's a decent proportion of cases that may be sitting there that has all the information needed to write a citation or to put together a case and kind of move it forward, but no one kind of knows that that's just sitting there. So one of the things that we did in our kind of meeting with Rob was talk about whether or not they could put together a database that had the actual complaint with the person that is the complaint, with a description of what the complaint is about, with a little bit of detail. And he said that there's something like that in Breeze now, but not all of the complaints have it. But we were just trying to brainstorm ways to sort of get this moving and get on top of this. And we thought maybe that would help them to be able to go back easily and go through and identify when there's more than one person or more than one complaint per person, or a new complaint comes in. And as I said, Rob mentioned that's already being done, but he's going to have them put a little bit more detail in so that they can easily go back and be like, okay, well, this one is pretty much done, that can move on, and so on. We also talked about having trying to get some input from other boards who may have faced this problem before and how they managed it, because the way we're doing it, in my opinion, isn't working. And I don't know what would, but when I did the math, we have 15 analysts now. There's 50 cases around 50 at the AG, and our total number of pending cases, at least when this memo was making, which says probably more, was 3,851 cases. And so there's about 50 at the AG, so that leaves us with about 3,800 cases. So that's about 250 cases per analyst. And I think the last time we looked at how many an average board had, and it was about 100 per analyst. So we have more than that. But anyway, if we looked at kind of work days per year, I averaged about 250 for that, with holidays and stuff. So each analyst would have to close one case per day, with not having any new cases come in over the next year to kind of get that backlog. And so I don't know if that's possible. I don't know what the answer is to it, but to me, I don't know that going along in this fashion is going to get on top of it. And we've been, we talk about, well, we'll give it some more time. We have this new system. We had a lot of vacancies, but it seems like we keep having vacancies, and that's just kind of the reality of the board. Because people get, they come in, they get trained, and then they get a better offer or whatever. But it seems like that's always going to be the case, where we're going to have vacancies and we're always training people up and stuff. And so I just am wondering if we have, like, how to get some new ideas as to how to address this. I'm just really concerned, obviously, that this is not really moving, and it's not the cycle times. It's just the number of cases, and I just don't see us getting on top of that. And so, so we asked Rob to go talk to some other board member, or not board members, but boards, to see how they dealt with complaints if they had this many. Rob's already enacted some of the stuff we talked about, I think. So he's very receptive to ideas. But do you guys have any ideas or thoughts on this?
I have a question as far as, is there a way to move forward with new cases versus old cases? And I don't know, I'm asking this question in that you've implemented new ideas, right? You've already, like you said, he's already started moving forward with some of the new ideas that you've said. But is there a way to say, yeah, there are old cases, they've already been old cases for a very long time, but we seem to be getting in a rut with the old cases and not, and we never move forward because we're dealing with the old cases for so long. But then the new cases become the old cases because we're still dealing with the old cases. But is there a way that we don't let the new cases get so backlogged too? So
well, they've done some of that, where things are, not everything's going to the DA without there's stipulated settlements, or they're saying the board will settle for this, and so that speeds up all that.
right.
But what Robin said, though, is he wants these old cases worked, so you don't take the easy new cases. You still have to work that old one and clear that backlog. I mean, some of these things sitting there for 5, 6, 7 years, it's just unacceptable.
Right.
Again, it's nothing that, adding another 15 analysts wouldn't help, but that doesn't seem to be an option. And there's always going to be lateral and other transfers within the Consumer Affairs Department. So we have to be dealing with this. But anything like that, where the cite and fine stuff's very easy, and that clears a lot of this stuff up. Anything where it doesn't have to go to the inspectors, or it doesn't have to go to the AG, is going to speed that process along. And that's what some of these boards did, like the medical board. They were doing a lot of letters of reprimand and citations in some rather egregious things. So they were sure closing their cases, but the sunset review came down on them pretty hard, apparently, because that's not protecting the consumer, which is our mandate here.
Right. Well, I mean, is Rob available to speak?
I am. Yeah, I was actually,
Okay, sorry.
I was ready and waiting. So as far as the new cases go, we definitely, and I think I relayed this information to Dr. Bradbury recently, because after our conversation with the subcommittee, I did a little bit more research, and the majority of the cases that we are closing are still newer cases. So despite the directive to work the oldest cases, which in my opinion is consistent with our mandate, we are closing newer cases. So that could be cases that are coming in that are very straightforward, that intake can take care of, that could be applicant cases, that could be cases that are related, that come in newer, that are related to an older case that are getting closed. And of those majority of cases that are newer, I want to say it was like 80 or 90% of those cases are actually, we received them this year. So actually in 2021. So they're very new cases. So, you know, even with that directive of working the oldest cases, we're still, you know, despite that, we're still closing a lot of newer cases. The concern with closing or working on newer cases, you know, in lieu of the older cases is, you know, the newer cases are fresh, and I think that we assume, oh, this is really egregious. But you know, in the wash, there's going to be equally egregious stuff in the older cases, and I would argue that more so there's going to be egregious stuff in those older cases because those are the cases that nobody wanted to touch. Those are the cases that people saw. Maybe they got the evidence and then they put it in a pile and said, "No, this is going to be too complex. Let me work this easy one where they, you know, didn't respond to a records request. We'll just do a quick citation." And I think that was kind of the thought process. So a lot of these backlogged older cases are egregious. The other thing, of course, that we're going to look at is whether or not there's been repeat violations. But if there hasn't been a repeat complaint against those older case subjects, that doesn't necessarily mean that violation is not still occurring. Obviously, the people in that community might not be complaining against that person. I know it happens a lot of times in low-income communities where they don't want to complain against that subject, and maybe we got one breakthrough complaint and we really need to work that. But it doesn't take away from the egregiousness of that, and it doesn't take away from the fact that it could be continuing to go on. Of course, when we do have an old case and then, you know, a spattering of newer cases, it is indicative of a much bigger problem, and that's going on. But it's not to say that those older cases also don't have an equally big problem. Dr. Bradbury mentioned going through the cases that we have, which I know that, you know, management, we talk about ways to address this backlog because it is extremely concerning. I think it keeps all of us up at night thinking about how to deal with this. But she had mentioned going through the cases that we had, and we started doing that. So with the 15 analysts, we went ahead and we took, I think it's 3,800 backlog cases or thereabouts, divided them among those analysts, and now the directive is to go through those cases, see which cases are particularly egregious, which cases are ready to be like closed, like if we can fast track and get them done, if everything's there. And, you know, cases that might be, maybe they were opened and they were non-jurisdictional, you know, they're just there pending. So cases that we can take care of, I want to say each analyst has about 250 cases. And so we gave them, I believe, about a month to go through those cases and just do a deep dive to see if we can get some of these cases triaged better. Because that's always been the problem with a lot of these cases is properly being able to triage, you know, 3,800 cases is pretty tough. I think, you know, to Dr. Bradbury's other point, I think that we do have the staff to take care of the cases that we receive every year. But she's right. The backlog is not going to be addressed by the staff that we have. Or it would be addressed in such a small incremental fashion that it would be decades before that we, you know, before we get into that that backlog. So I know we've also talked about maybe limited term to take care of the backlog and kind of pop that bubble of the 3,800 backlog. All the while, the 15 analysts that we have that are permanent can take care of the incoming cases. Not that that's how the work would be divided. I'm just saying, you know, as far as numbers go, or student interns, or you know, we're trying to think of a way that can take care of that backlog, because at the end of the day, it comes down to the numbers, and I think that's something that we're not able to take care of, or we weren't able to take care of with the staff that we had. You know, with 4 analysts getting 1,600 cases coming in, it's not feasible. And I know that I've talked to our DAG liaison, Karen Denver, you know, multiple times about this, and different DAGs who've been involved in our cases. And I think they attest to the fact that our cases are some of the most complex out there. Not only that, you know, with these cases, we don't have a statute of limitations. So it's not like we say, hey, this case is 3 years old, you know, get rid of it, close it, because it hit that arbitrary number. And you know, whatever the reasoning is behind that, it is what it is. We don't just simply say this case is too old, so let's go ahead and close it. Granted, we take that into account. If we have an old case and we don't have any, you know, repeat violations, or it's not particularly egregious, all of that's weighed into it. You know, we're that's in our law to actually consider the time that's gone by, and we do that every time. But I know that, you know, Karen has mentioned it. Like I said, the DAG has mentioned it when they're assigned to cases, that ours are some of the most complex out there. And I think, one of the other things that doesn't make our cases as cut and dry as some of the maybe the medical board cases or the nursing cases is, you have a patient who would actually say, hey, I went in, this is what happened. Here we have an animal, they can't speak. And a lot of times, somebody isn't back there with the veterinarian who's treating the animal patient. So it's kind of like, I know something's wrong, and there's a lot more investigative work that goes into it. And I think it's harder to meet that burden of proof once that investigation's done too. So we want to make sure that we are doing a full investigation. We certainly aren't looking to or searching for extra cases. These are cases that are filed with us. If we can close it at intake, we will. If it's non-jurisdictional, great, we can close it as non-jurisdictional. The unfortunate reality is the vast majority of the complaints that we get are jurisdictional, and they might come in and say, I'm complaining this guy was a jerk, they overcharged me, and we're going, okay, non-jurisdictional, and then they say, and the facility was a mess, it was disgusting. We go, jurisdictional. So that means we can't, there might have been all this non-jurisdictional stuff, but they have that one nugget, that one allegation that is jurisdictional. So we can't simply say, well, we'll go ahead and just close it because the most of it's non-jurisdictional. We have a reason to investigate that. And the other reality is once we investigate it, once again, not that we're looking for things, but other things tend to pop up. So if we do go out on an inspection for, okay, this facility's dirty, there are times where they go out and they see, oh, look at this, unlicensed practice is happening here. And we simply can't turn a blind eye to that because it's right there. We're not looking for it. Shouldn't say we're not looking for it. We're looking for it when we go out there, but we're not like Googling people, and saying, let me look at all these random, vets. It's right there in front of us, and we have to investigate it. That's consistent with what our mandate is. But I think, to Dr. Bradbury's point again, we're really trying to embrace any kind of ideas that come our way, and I think everything that was suggested, we're looking into that or trying to implement that. So,
Karen, would you like to add anything to what Rob has just added or what the subcommittee has just commented on?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Having technical difficulties earlier. Yes, just to echo what Rob has said, truly your cases tend to be some of the most complicated ones as far as your average case that gets sent over to us, whether it even be a citation, oftentimes is very complicated, it involves an expert opinion. So I would imagine that the vetting and investigation of those takes quite a bit of time. I can say I'm now a supervising deputy attorney general, so I've not been assigned any cases myself in about a year and a half, but I obviously see the ones that come into my team, and I talk to other people within, across the state about vet board cases, and I talk with Rob quite a bit and Matt, and I can say that, whatever you are doing on the front end is definitely benefiting us, that the cases are very well prepped. There's a lot less time once it comes to us. Everything is there. Oftentimes settlement terms are coming over at the outset, which is great because, as there's a lot of back and forth, and respondents sometimes tend not to get us mitigation until they're looking down the barrel of a hearing date sometimes. So cases that can be settled are being settled earlier. So from my point of view, I think that the work product that I've seen has been great and has helped us kind of efficiently move these cases. And I do know that I think it's human nature probably that the older cases that you are addressing are probably the more complicated ones that people didn't want to deal with earlier. So it seems like a very difficult situation. And it is unfortunate that you can't get those 15 extra analysts and just crank through. I know I've talked to Rob quite a bit about this. I've talked to Jessica and to Matt, and I know it is a top priority, and it is kind of that catch-22 of you want to do the new cases, of course, because you don't want to keep this going, but at the same time, you have to deal with the old cases. You can't just shut them down. So it's very tough. I know that Jessica and Rob, has been their top priority, and that they've been very open to any kind of suggestion. And to be honest, any suggestion that I've made, they've already considered and either are doing it or have, realized that's not the best way to go. So If anything, I empathize. I don't know what the solution is to get through that backlog, but it is a true problem that is, I think, the result of a number of factors. And again, your average case is quite a bit more complicated than a number of cases we get from our other client agencies. That's just the nature of it. And the fact that the patients can't speak. There's a lot of kind of reconstructing things after the fact. It's a complicated area. It's one of the reasons that these are kind of my favorite cases is because, you know, animals can't speak for themselves, which is great in theory, but working up that kind of case just takes a lot of work. So I don't know that I have anything additional to suggest that I haven't already conveyed to Rob and that they've already considered. I wish that I could somehow grant you 15 analysts to work through the backlog, but so I don't know what the solution is other than to kind of echo what Rob has said and what you all have said. I'm sure it's frustrating too as the complaints continue to come in and that number goes up. It's hard to chip away at that big number in the back. But I think like what Rob said too is that when he was looking at the number of cases that have been closed, a large number of them were newer cases. And that's because you can kind of knock out the easier ones or the ones, you know, where there isn't something there. So, you know, anything that we can do to assist, the staff has been very receptive to any kind of comments that we have provided to kind of help things as far as once they get to our office. If there's anything else that we can do to assist, we, you know, of course we'll do that.
I appreciate the perspective of the older cases being so egregious nobody wants to touch them, because that's not, you know, sometimes we forget that perspective of it. We're thinking they're just so old that they're kind of forgotten instead of being egregious cases and being difficult cases. We're thinking of they're just so old. They're just old that, well, one person looks at them and now that somebody else looks at them, they've reviewed them, but okay, they've gotten familiar with the case, and then we have turnover, and now another person has to review the case. It's not about the actual case, it's about the turnover that we're facing during the process. And I think that's the part we forget. And so I appreciate you bringing us back to that perspective and reminding us that the case is bad. And we have to remember that part of it. And it's going to take longer to get through it because there are more details that we need to weed through, and we need to get, it's important. And I appreciate that. So
one of the, I mean, I think it's small consequence that I tell to some of the analysts is they're kind of getting a trial by fire right now because they're taking care of these older cases. And I can tell when I talk to them and they're talking about some of the evidence they've come across, some of the, I guess the loose ends that they're asking about. And of course they know the answer internally. Yeah, we need to see this. This is a possible violation. We can't just leave it out there. But essentially, since they're dealing with these cold cases that other people have touched and not wanted, I guess the carrot on a stick or the light at the end of the tunnel is that eventually they'll get the new cases that nobody's touched, and those are going to be like a joy because they're going to be a treat of, oh wow, nobody's kind of already done a bunch of stuff that I have no idea why they did it. I get to do this from start to finish. And I know that the start to finish, Dr. Bradbury mentioned, you know, earlier, is something that we changed to, but I know that that's a small thing. It seems like a small thing, but it's a big thing to some analysts to get some value in what they do. And I know we've actually hired people who've come from other boards where it's all siloed, where they only do one piece and they want to experience the whole thing. Because
Right.
with state, you know, bureaucracy, things can get definitely a little dry and a little dull, and you can lose the meaning of what you do. And it kind of has to snap us back to reality when we see, like, let's say we revoke this person's license and they were a true danger and people are calling in thanking us. Of course, there's the people who are calling in who are mad because, hey, you took my license. But, you know, that's when you're really rewarded by that. So I think, you know, eventually we'll get there. And I know that what we do is really important. It's just there's a lot of it.
Well, I appreciate all of your work. Everybody has done. I think the subcommittee is so important, and I am thankful that it has continued and it will continue. I hope everybody appreciates the importance of this subcommittee. So thank you all for your diligence, your due diligence, and your work on it. So any other comments from the subcommittee or from the MDC?
Yeah, this is Diane Sequoia. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. I'm going to ask for your forbearance and patience because I'm the new kid on the block. So what I've been hearing is very illuminating, but I have a couple of questions that are going to sound really dumb as I say I'm coming in. So it sounds like, and this question is probably for Rob, it sounds like as complaints come in, they're triaged as to whether they're non-jurisdictional, they're jurisdictional, whether they're egregious and have to be dealt with right away, or they can take their place in the queue. So I'm presuming they go into, as they come into the VMB, when they're triaged, they then go into, they're recorded in an action priority file, which is a standing file for the complaints. And then this macro file is available to everybody and is looked at and checked off as the things get done and as it's people, the analysts and Rob figure out what needs to go next. I guess an example to me would be what happens if there's a complaint pending and the veterinarian retires or dies or sells the practice or premise to somebody else? Does the complaint automatically get closed or does it just sit in the queue?
So, and I think having the cases divided up with 15 analysts makes it a lot easier to track these. I think to your point about having them all in this macro queue is somewhat accurate. We use Breeze, so that's our database where all the complaints are stored. While they're there, they're still assigned to a specific analyst. They're not just in like a generic queue. So if we do receive notification, if we have a complaint against somebody, we receive notification that they died, most likely we're going to close that complaint. There's no reason to keep that open. They're not a threat to consumers. Obviously, there could be other things that are going on. If they were, let's say, abetting unlicensed practice, then we might need to investigate the person who was practicing unlicensed. So, in most cases, yes, that's how it's going to go. Simply retired, though, whether it's them telling, because this is a common thing. We get people who are a little older, and I think they try to mitigate the threat of their violation by saying, well, I'm essentially retired right now, or I'm out of state, I'm retired. But for all intents and purposes, when somebody is quote unquote retired, they can still just move right back to active status and practice right away. So there's nothing that ensures that we're going to know that they're now practicing if we just close that case based on them being retired. Sometimes they'll say they're retired. Other times they can actually retire their license status with us. But either way, until that license is, if they're a threat, until that license is canceled or revoked, or we've got that secured to where they can't practice, then consumers are potentially at risk. So obviously them being retired, it's something that we're going to consider when we're looking at the actual violation, but it's certainly not going to be just, oh, you're retired, okay, we can go ahead and close this. Because like I said, they can come back, and the unfortunate reality is sometimes people will lie to just get the board off their back. And I think a lot of times that's what a lot of subjects want to do is, what can I do to get the board away? And I think the problem is, previously, a lot of times we would reach out to these subjects, we would send them a letter to get a response, and we wouldn't get a response back. So we'd say, it's been alleged that you were in violation of X, Y, and Z. Please provide a response, medical records, whatever. What happened in the past is sometimes they wouldn't respond at all, and we would take that non-response as, oh, we can go ahead and close the case, which to me, that doesn't make any sense. There's still an allegation that there's a violation. Them simply not responding doesn't absolve them of that violation. We need to do our job and investigate it and make sure that that's not a threat to consumers. And that, I think, is another big difference, that we're not just saying, oh, they didn't respond, let's close this, because that doesn't make any sense. But yeah, definitely, I think we consider those things when we are investigating the cases. That would be brought up to the analyst's attention. If they try to say, oh, hey, I'm retired, or we see an obituary or something like that, somebody says this person is deceased, then that would be considered. and they would write up a route slip, the analyst, and they would say, hey, this is why I'm recommending we close this. It goes to a manager, and then they review that and basically agree or disagree depending on the circumstances.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
I feel I understand it better now.
Sure, yeah.
So I have just a question with regard to the, I guess, variety or consistency of certain complaints that you receive. Because I'm kind of going all the way back to the part where the complaints arise, and in my head, are you seeing, a certain kind of complaint come through more often than not? And the reason I'm asking this is that it might be nice to reduce the quantity of complaints that come to the board, maybe through an educational premise. So does this board regularly work with the Veterinary Association and maybe, work with them and talk to them about, we see complaints in these 3 areas. These are the biggest areas of complaints that we receive. Perhaps there's an opportunity for you to bolster the educational process and their continuing education and try and sort of move the ball before these complaints arise in the first place. Because, I really appreciate how diligent this board is. It sounds like you all do a really good job of vetting the complaint. You're trying to really fulfill your obligations, but I'm just wondering if there's some opportunity here to flag this for the association. I'm assuming they do work with their membership and various continuing education opportunities, but I don't know if I'm just being crazy, but thought I'd ask the question.
Yeah, and I think that working hand in hand with the association is something that we do, and education is always paramount to what we do. What we get as far as the complaints we receive, I would say the majority are negligence and competence. So they're not necessarily, I think, on face value, an automatic educational opportunity,
right?
Because it's somebody who is basically complaining, and a lot of times they don't know what went on. I think a lot of the stuff that goes on in a veterinary office is kind of arcane to a layperson, and so they assume something went wrong. That's always the assumption. My dog or cat died, they must have done something wrong, and we have to investigate that. And yeah, and a lot of times it's like it was that animal's time. The vet did everything correct, but they don't know. Obviously, they're grieving, and they assume something was wrong because the cat or the dog was alive when it went in, and now it's not. But I would say that is the majority is they're alleging negligence and competence. I think it would be great if we had more of a variety of complaints that come in to where we could kind of triage them better. And I think I mentioned that during the last board meeting, that our statute that shows our complaint priority, the number 1 classification for the death or serious harm, that's like 50% of the complaints that we get. So it doesn't really help that, we've got 8 categories for classifying things, and half of them or more than half of them fall into that first category of the most egregious. It'd be great if they fell into the lowest priority and, made a lot of them easier, but unfortunately they don't. But I know that it's still early in this fiscal year, and I think in the enforcement report, the pie chart has changed a little bit. I think that's dropped to where it's, around 35% for the negligence and competence. But I think we haven't reached really a large enough sample size to get back to that 50%, which I imagine it would. The other thing that I noticed is the unlicensed allegations that we've gotten this quarter, this fiscal year, are much higher. And I think if we straight line those numbers, that's going to double what we had last year. So whether or not that's going to happen, like I said, we're still a quarter in, so we're still early on in the year, and I don't want to make assumptions, but I think I did the same thing with the amount of complaints we did 2 months in last year, and I said, we're going to have the highest number of complaints, and we ended up going around that area, even a little higher. So, knock on wood that it's not going to be that many unlicensed complaints, because that is concerning as well, is getting a lot of complaints about unlicensed activity. But I don't know if Jessica wants to chime in about working with the association, but I know that's definitely
key. I do. Maria, thank you so much for that comment and that suggestion. That actually reminded me of a recent conversation I had. So I attend the CVMA Board of Governors meeting every quarter, and they are well aware of this backlog, and they often provide a lot of
suggestions and recommendations. And one of the things that they had said during the last meeting, was it last week or the week before? Every day is the same to me. But one of the things that they had said is that they're recognizing that a lot of these cases, there is a huge communication breakdown between the veterinarian and the client, or the veterinarian and the subsequent veterinarians. And so they have agreed to really help with that communication. They talked about it during their Board of Governors meeting of how we can work together to do some more educational efforts. And the schools were there as well, Western and UC Davis, and they talked about the communication and the piece of that in the education early on. And I think that everybody is working to think of ways that we can help educate our licensees better to avoid these types of complaints coming in. Some other things in our pipeline is to create more educational webinars, offer CE from the board and put it on our website for common violations that we receive. So hopefully we can do more education up front to reduce the number of complaints that come in. So we definitely are working with the associations to do that education, and then also our continuing education on our end as well.
Oh, that's great. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I think also we're doing we're with the law portion of it. I think actually you and I are going to be doing that together to help educate. I love the idea of trying to, is kind of looking at it a different, just in a different way, which is, well, let's slow that down a little bit. So I like that. On that, with that idea, I was wondering if in filing a complaint, if how before you actually get to certain screens and some forms that you have to fill out, you have to like, for example, if you're going to fly or get your boarding pass, since I've been doing that, you have to check whether you have symptoms and so on. If there was like a checklist, like is this regarding a financial thing? I actually haven't looked at how people file complaints, but I don't know if they have to put yes or no. And if maybe there was a checklist to help organize the complaints into a different categories so that it's easier once the analyst gets it to put it into the database in the proper way. Like, oh, this is a, unprofessional conduct, unlicensed practice, but they don't have to actually read through the whole thing initially. Obviously they still would, but also, is this a financial thing? Which would then, take them to a screen that this isn't, if it was about finances, this isn't a complaint for the board, so that our analysts aren't having to read through and weed those ones out. I don't know if that might be helpful to lower the number of complaints. I don't know if I'm making sense either. Does that make sense to you guys, what I'm saying? Like,
no, they when they do file the complaint, I can't recall if there is a checklist for financial. I know it does say how they want it to be resolved, but that is something that intake does look at. If they're simply kind of saying, I was overcharged for this, I want my money back, that's going to be closed non-jurisdictional. That's something to where they can handle that in small claims court, and we'd be happy to close that. But the vast majority,
I guess, like, if they were to check that box, they would come to an educational screen that said, this is not jurisdictional, this is not what the board said. So then the analyst wouldn't be having to close the case because it wouldn't be coming in as a complaint.
It wouldn't come in. So it doesn't go to the analyst, the intake technician. So it's a different, I don't want to say unit, it's all part of enforcement, but we have two intake technicians who take in the, let's say, 8 to 10 complaints a day, the phone calls, the emails, and they filter those. And so only the ones that actually have jurisdiction are going to be filtered over to the analyst. So the analysts aren't going to know about the non-jurisdictional complaints. The technicians should close those non-jurisdictional, but we do get a lot of those complaints where they say, I'm really mad about the money that I paid for this, but also they killed my dog. So it's like, that's non-jurisdictional, but we still have to investigate it because they're alleging that they killed the dog. So it's definitely not as not as heavy on those type of complaints. I know that at my previous board, it was a lot of complaints where we were sending them the booklet for small claims court. I mean, it was kind of a good percentage of the complaints that we got. And then to the point about communication, I think that's a really, really large opportunity, because I know a lot of our complaints, that's where things break down. And I think resolving that, or at least addressing that, would be really, really big, and probably lowering the amount of complaints that we get.
I think this is where educational pieces will come in to play, and I think they will help out a lot for both the veterinarian side of it as well as the client side. And I think those are going to be huge tools and resources for the profession and for the consumer, and hopefully help reduce the number of complaints, just because they can help answer questions for people. I know that it has often been said in many, you can go to any continuing education course when you talk about client education, and it is the number one reason people complain. They didn't understand. You didn't communicate enough. And if you try to communicate with people, you can usually work through a problem. And that's really where it comes down to. I think we're in a different time right now. Unfortunately, the pandemic did bring out a different time, and different people are going to complain. And so a lot of times communication doesn't work no matter what. But and I think that goes on both ends with the profession as well as the client. There's no communication. And so, but it, so a lot of, there doesn't seem to be a, it doesn't appear to be there's just a communication gap. And so it's not as easy. There's not as much, there's no patience, but I don't know. We're going to have to seem to work this out, but I still don't think that we give up. I think that we still keep trying, because if we keep trying, then we can bridge this gap again.
Can I add one thing, not to cause more problems, but just, talking about screening out financial complaints, I just wanted to it just made me think that I had a case where, among other problems, the vet was staying a dog and charged extra for it being pregnant. And there was no way the dog was pregnant based on the circumstances. And so it was actually, a fraudulent act. It was, fairly egregious. So I'm only putting it out there because if there was something like this where financial complaints were put to the side, it would just be good to have somebody just go through to make sure that it's not simply a matter of, they said they were going to charge me $100 and they charged me $150, and just to make sure there's not something more significant in there. But I mean, I do like that idea, though, of kind of having them categorized up front to try to minimize it. But anyway, I just wanted to put that out there, not to cause more problems, but.
No, that's good. That's helpful to hear a real life scenario where, having just a algorithm might not be serving our purpose of protecting the consumer. Rob and Jessica, I wanted to just say that that was an outstanding review there from Miss Denver. So nice job, you guys, on helping with that, because that not only saves time, it saves the board money, and that may mean that we can get a team of temporary analysts to go through the backlog. So nice job. That's and you guys really have continued to stick with it and been really transparent with things, and really that's the only way we're going to solve it, is to know the dirty truth of what's happening, and it isn't pleasant, but we have to keep talking about it. So thank you for all your hard work. I had one other idea that you guys can tell me I'm crazy about too, but I don't know. I thought about whether, we have a lot of new people, and because the older cases, a lot of them are more complex, would it make sense to like potentially like start out with assigning some of those to the more experienced people? Maybe that's already being done.
It is, yeah.
Okay, all right.
It
That
is,
was
yeah.
just
So we do get, for example, and I think we talked about this maybe a couple of years ago when we shifted over some of the applicant cases, the conviction cases that do involve an investigation. So new analysts, let's say they haven't been with a board before where they were an enforcement analyst, but they're coming in fresh, but they've got a good analytical mind. We kind of get their feet wet with those conviction cases. They're a lot more straightforward than the complex medical record or standard of care cases, because you've got a conviction that stands on its own, but it allows them to do the investigative work and go through that process and really get an understanding of it to where they can make a better transition to taking on something, more complex, which eventually that's what they're really going to be doing, the majority of their time. So yeah, new people are really going to, the lion's share of what they do is going to be the newer cases. I don't want to say easier, but I mean, I think it's more straightforward. So.
great. Thank you. And then Ms. Denver, I know that you were putting together something for that was more veterinary related. As I was reviewing the notes, I was like, am I supposed to be coming up with some veterinary examples for you? I think maybe we were supposed to do that as a subcommittee, and maybe that should be something that we're doing. Did I misread those notes?
I think there was some veterinary or some specific examples that came from the medical board training, some situational questions, and I think I gave that to you and Dr. Lazarev to see if we could convert those into veterinary specific examples or questions, and then our experts could use those, and it would be more germane to what they do. We did, as far as the training goes, that's more veterinary specific. We talked to Karen and I had a meeting yesterday with Amber, one of my analysts, who's kind of acting as like the go-between for our expert program. She's doing the logistical stuff, and she actually attended the training this weekend as well. But we do have a presentation or a PowerPoint, and we're going through it and kind of trying to make it as concise as possible, addressing the issues that you as the subcommittee have pointed out. And I think what we're going to do is we're going to go through it from a staff level. Amber got some feedback from some of our experts who attended the training. So we're going to try and put that into the presentation to address that. And then we'll probably send that back to Karen for her to take a look at it. And then I was hoping to have you and Dr. Lazarev take a look to provide, your input. That way, when we have that training, obviously, Karen can kind of drive it, but I think you and Dr. Lazarev are going to be like really, really important with presenting your side of it, because you're reviewing their expert reports. And I think this is kind of where the rubber meets the road, because some of these experts, I think, are really nervous about messing things up. They want to do things right. And I think being able to guide them in the right way and give them constructive feedback is important, and point out the pitfalls that you're seeing when you review these cases. So that was the plan. I was going to tell you about that probably after the board meeting. I know this week's probably going to be crazy.
I have a question. I think it's for Rob. Do you have a tree diagram you could share with the MDC on a complaint comes in and how it moves through the process to either?
Yeah, I think I do. Yeah, I have an enforcement. So I have like it's. Yeah, I think it's basically like a tree, like a diagram that goes complaint comes in here and it goes all the way to like the AG's office, citation, all that kind of stuff, appeal. And I think it's like a DCA, like it's like a paper. I think I have it in my office actually, where it shows that, that pathway from a complaint. And I think it's really valuable. It's something I have a PDF of it in our procedure manual folder, and the new people that come on, that's one of the things they have access to, because it makes it a lot easier to follow how enforcement works just from a 30,000 foot view. So I can certainly.
Yeah, I believe it's been shared with the MDC before even. So I think.
I'm sorry, I don't have.
Oh, no, Diane, that Dr. Sequoia, that is not on you. You just joined us, so that is not on you. I'm letting him know that's not something that I'm certain that it's been in this subcommittee packet. So I feel like it's something that I know he has.
Oh yeah. I can certainly provide that to you, Doctor.
Thank you. I would appreciate it.
And it's nice to have those. It's nice to have those refreshers, because you're not the only new member on this committee. So it's nice. We should continue that in there and refresh everybody. Thank you for bringing that up.
Thank you.
So Jessica and Rob, what do you need us to make a recommendation to the board to give you approval to hire temporary analysts? Do you think that that's something that what can we do to help you guys work on this?
So no, you don't have to give us approval. And the recommendations in there, we can already run with. We don't need a motion or anything like that. If you want to give us more analysts, I'd love more funds to hire the more analysts. But aside from that, we're working on looking at all of our resources, see whatever we can do to reallocate existing resources to enforcement. I know that we had mentioned at the last meeting, we had a position that primarily dealt with the exam workshops. And since that went away, we reallocated that position into enforcement. With the merge with enforcement and inspection merge, we gained 5 analysts into enforcement while still maintaining inspections. So we're really looking at essentially at the end of the day, it's a math problem, it's a numbers problem. It just doesn't make sense to have an analyst have 250 cases, and the only way we're going to save this is with more resources. So over the next year, we are looking at what we can do with the existing resources, but I think we are going to have to pursue a budget change proposal to try to get some limited term staff here to help address that backlog, because we do think that the 15 is enough to maintain with the complaints that we're receiving now, but it's not going to tackle the backlog. And at the end of the day, we can make all the process improvements. The numbers just don't work.
Thank you.
You shouldn't laugh that hard when you come on with it. You can do this. I believe in all of you. Any other comments from the committee? Thank you all. This was a very productive conversation, so I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Moderator, can we please open up for any comments from the public for agenda item number 6?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have opened up the Q&A panel, and if any member of the public would like to make a comment on agenda item 6, please type comment in the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen and submit it to all panelists. We are displaying instructions and we'll give you a moment. All right, this is a moderator, and we have a one comment. I'm just trying to see the name. So an individual identified as BLL. Just a reminder, I will give you permission to unmute yourself. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. I'll give you a 30-second warning, and you should be able to unmute yourself. Give you a moment. All right, you are unmuted.
I think I'm unmuted.
Yes, we can
Okay.
hear you.
It's Bonnie Lutz. I don't know why it came up BLL. But anyway, I really applaud you for looking at all of this. I actually have like over 100 pending cases myself. And so I think that, it's really awesome that you're looking at this issue and trying to streamline it. I also just wanted to offer any assistance that I can give you as far as, training veterinarians. I mean, I've defended over 600 of these cases, and I'm really happy to participate in anything I can do to get the process moving, not just for my clients, but, for the whole process. So I just wanted to offer my assistance if you would like it. Thank you.
Thank you, Bonnie.
Thank you.
All right, this is the moderator. I see no further requests for public comment. Madam Chair, shall we close the Q&A panel?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you for agenda item number 6. We can close that and move on to agenda item number 7. Here it comes, election of 2022 committee officers. So we are closing out 2021. This is our last meeting of 2021. So we need to elect our chair and vice chair for 2021. I know all of you want to jump for it. So do I have any nominations for chair?
Yes, I'd like to nominate Dick Sullivan for chair of this MDC committee.
And
I'll second that.
who seconded it?
Christina.
Okay. Yeah, and I know that Dr. Sullivan's not on the committee, but I do know that he is serving the MDC right now at another meeting, and I know that he would accept the nomination as chair.
Whether he accepts it or not, let's vote him in.
So, and any questions or comments? I know nobody wants this, right? It's like, yeah. And being that Kevin was vice chair and he made the nomination, we can assume that he's good with this. So, okay.
Yes, he is.
Can we open this up to the moderator? Do we have to open this one up to the public too then, I guess, huh? Thank you.
Can I just clarify that when he said he nominated, that's a motion that he made to
Yes.
appoint Dr. Okay.
Correct, Dr. Lazarshev? Because she seconded.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. So yes, we do have to open up a public comment.
All right, this is the moderator and the Q&A panel is now available. If any member of the public would like to comment on this agenda item, please type comment in the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen and submit it to all panelists. We are displaying instructions. All right, Madam Chair, I see no request for comment at this time. Shall I close the Q&A panel?
Yes, please. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So we can call for a vote on this.
Ms. Pulowski,
Yes.
Dr. Lazarshev,
Yes.
Dr. Bradbury,
Yes.
Ms. Laredo,
Yes.
Dr. Payton,
Yes.
Ms. Chaffel,
Yes.
Ms. Berber,
Yes.
Dr. Sequoia.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Okay, so now that we have that, we need a vice chair. Do I have anybody interested in the vice chair position? Everybody volunteer at once.
I would be interested.
I know. I was gonna.
Leah.
I would make a recommendation if I could, and so we have Leah, who is his self-nominating, and so if anybody would like to second her nomination.
Can I nominate Leah and then somebody can second it? I nominate Leah for vice chair.
I second that.
I second.
There we go. So we have Jennifer nominated Leah and Dr. Lazarshev seconded. There we go.
So was that a motion?
It was a motion. Yeah, there we go. A motion to nominate. What is that? There we go. Any further discussion on that? Thank you, Jennifer, for. Okay, so can we open this up for public comment, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I've opened up the Q&A panel, and if any member of the public would like to comment on this agenda item, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen and submit it to all panelists. We are displaying instructions. All right, Madam Chair, I see no requests for comment at this time. Shall I close the Q&A panel?
Yes, please. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Jessica?
Ms. Pulowski,
Yes.
Dr. Lazarchuk,
Yes.
Dr. Bradbury,
Yes.
Ms. Laredo,
Yes.
Dr. Payton,
Yes.
Ms. Chappelle,
Yes.
Ms. Berber,
Yes.
Dr. Sequoia.
Yes.
Motion carries. Congratulations.
Yay. Okay. That was nice. Okay. So I'm going to go back to agenda item number 2. If we can go back to that one, I would appreciate. And once again, I will say happy Vet Tech Week to all of our registered veterinary technicians out there, and I appreciate all of you attending a meeting. So, as you know, this is my last meeting. I have been coming to MDC meetings long before I got on the committee. So it's been way over 10 years. I would like to take this opportunity to thank each member of our committee for their personal time and commitment. The MDC is devoted to assist and advise the Veterinary Medical Board through difficult and often controversial laws and policies. It has been our duty to research, spend time gathering information, and presenting our findings. We all interviewed with the Veterinary Medical Board, and one of the questions asked of us was, how will you handle defending or presenting a position that is not popular with your profession or colleagues? I am before you today as a complete representation that I have defended and presented positions that may not have been my personal opinions, but were findings of long hours, dedication, and tireless effort of our committee. We have all chosen to work within the boundaries of our Veterinary Medicine Practice Act to achieve what is best to protect consumers and animals, thereby protecting the veterinary profession. We fight to safeguard what is most valuable to all those working on the MDC and the VMB, animals and those who serve them. I encourage anyone participating, whether it be in the audience or through the committee or the board, to take a chance to get to know one another. We are all on a similar course. The path we choose may be different, and the expected outcome may have variations. Some paths have a few more curves than others. However, if we continue discussions, gather more information, and have those difficult conversations, we continue our mission to protect consumers and animals through the Veterinary Medicine Practice Act. Again, thank you for the many years of entertainment, continued learning, and growth, and I look forward to the future. Thank you all. So thank you all to the MDC and the VMB. And we can move on. I guess I need to open up agenda item number 2 to public comment.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yeah, I should. Yeah, go ahead. You're fine.
Comment. I'm all teary-eyed. I really am. Like, Christy, thank you so much. You know, I knew you before coming onto the board, and your dedication to this profession, and you know, outside of what you do here, you're just a wonderful representation of a human, and
thank you.
That spills over into your work as an RVT, and then here you've just done so much work, and in the face of a lot of outside things happening, it's just been amazing. And I have worried about you with your working too much, but you somehow pull it off, and I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I would not be able to do what I do without the team of people that I have around me, and I will thank them every single day, and I include this MDC as part of that team. And so they're the people that make it happen every single day. And thank you for that. So thank you. Sorry. Okay, moderators. Sorry.
No worries. So the Q&A panel is now available. If any member of the public would like to comment on agenda item 2, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen and submit it to all panelists. We are displaying instructions for your reference, and we'll give you a moment. All right, this is the moderator. I see no request for comment at this time. Madam Chair, shall I close the Q&A panel?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
Wait, I think there is, Anita says that she wants to make a comment. It's in the chat.
All right, let me give Anita Hudson permission to unmute herself. All right, Anita, you should be able to, there you go, you're unmuted.
Thank you so much for catching that. I was like, oh no, I did want to make a comment. I just wanted to say thank you so much for all of your time and your effort. Of course, I am speaking directly right now to you, Christy, but it goes for everyone there. But especially at this current time of Vet Tech Week, what a way to celebrate your Vet Tech Week is this send off. Thank you for your examples that you've given. You've given me a lot. I've definitely followed what you've been doing. As you guys know, I'm always trying to observe and learn and follow along with what you guys are doing there. It's much appreciated. If you don't hear it enough, all the vet techs out there, they may not all be at the meetings. They may not all be people that you recognize their faces, but we are definitely passing on the information, and they voice to me their appreciation. So all of you are amazing, but especially Christy. Wow, I don't know what it's going to be like next time, but I hope that you are going to be going on to do more wonderful things, and we'll be paying attention.
We have good representation, so I'm very thankful for it.
Me too.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right.
I think we're good now.
Okay.
I don't see anything else.
Thank you.
Okay, agenda item number 8. Future agenda items and meeting dates. These are all yours. These are all yours. You guys get these. So January, April, July. Make sure these are in your calendars. And I would assume that at this point, we don't know if they're going to be in person or not, correct, Jessica?
That's correct.
So, any questions on the meeting dates? And then does anybody have any future agenda items that they need to add? Okay. Hearing none, we can open this up to the public.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have opened up the Q&A panel, and if any member of the public would like to make a comment on this agenda item, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of the screen, and please send your reply to all panelists. We are displaying instructions for your reference, and we'll give you a moment. All right, I see no request for comment at this time. Madam Chair, shall I close the Q&A panel?
Yes, please.
Okay.
And with that, we move to agenda item number 9, my final adjournment. Thank you all. Have a great day. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you,
Thanks
Christy.
for everything.
Stay
Miss you.
healthy.
Happy Vet Tech Week.
Happy Vet Tech Week.